Hi, welcome back to the Quality Cup Life podcast. My name is Imani, and here we talk about how to live a better quality of life for young adults, how to make your own decisions, and how to create the life that you want to live instead of letting other people tell you how to live. Today, we are talking about how beautiful it is to be a non-traditional millennial or a Gen Z or X or whatever you are. Because, a lot of times people will poop on our generation and we'll talk about how distracted and how we can't do this, we can't do that, we're no good, and we don't play that around here. So thank you so much for listening, and let's get into the show. All right, what's going on? Welcome back to Quality Cup Life. Today, what I have in I don't have a cup today, but I have water today. Drink you some water today, please. Flush yourself out, please. And today on the podcast, I just wanted to talk about the non-traditional millennial or Gen X is the one that's right below it. Because I'm a 96 baby, and some sources put me in the millennial category, and some sources take me out, and the cutoff is 95. So whatever it is, we are non-traditional, or a lot of us are. And what I mean by non-traditional is that our kind of generation, or those two generations, have really switched up the game and really made some really large strides and movements and changed the way the world works. And we have this really unique perspective because we have experience with before the world got completely changed, and we know what it's like now, if that makes sense. So generally speaking, the cool thing about being non-traditional is that we've done stuff like started to prioritize our well-being, meaning like our mental health, our physical health, emotions, because, back in the day, people weren't knowing their feelings and weren't knowing their emotions, which that has its place, but when there's sometimes where you need to address your emotions and you need to talk about stuff, whereas a lot of people didn't talk about their issues. They just kind of swept it under the rug and never went back to visit them and to address them and get themselves some help, and never went to therapy or anything like that. And then another cool thing that we've done was we kind of popularized talking to strangers on the internet, really, because I remember when I was young, maybe 10 and younger or whatever, and even maybe a little bit older than 10. Of course, the internet was around and stuff like that, and I was used to getting on the computer, but it was dangerous to talk to strangers on the internet because, they had the show To Catch a Predator and Dateline and all that stuff like that, showing where young teen girls or boys or whatever were talking to random people on the internet, and they ended up being 50-year-old men, really big guys, fat guys who live within their mom's basement, and they come over and, rape them or kidnap them or, just crazy stuff like that. Whereas it's pretty normal now. You got Facebook, you got Instagram, TikTok, people talk, Twitter, we talk to strangers all over the world, and it's kind of considered normal now. We've made money topics that were kind of taboo or unheard of, kind of stuff like passive income. That's talked about all over the internet now, and it went from, things from the internet to talking about them in real life. Whereas, when I was a kid, and even before I was even born, I'm pretty sure in, lower class and middle class type of environments, passive income wasn't really a topic. It was you go to work and you go get a job. That's it. And you put in for the 401k if you have a 401k, and you collect your social security. That's it. What is a passive income? You know what I mean? There was a barrier for a lot of people. where that barrier has been kind of broken down. And then another thing is that, which is another really non-traditional thing, is monetizing your online content. And it's pretty crazy because literally every and anybody is online, and that goes from kids to like seniors. And a lot of kids, or like millennial and Gen Z, man, making bank on the internet, just making stuff. It ain't even got to be nothing serious. They could just be dancing and having fun and blow up on the internet, or telling their stories and blow up on the internet, or doing different makeup looks and blowing up on the internet, stuff like that. Doing skits, blowing up on the internet, and making bank and doing what they love and doing it just for fun. And I used to watch people my age when I was in high school, and I was so fascinated by the fact that they were my age and they were blowing up on YouTube and making a bunch of money. And they were able to, when they turned 18, they were able to move out of their house and move to LA, and live their dream life or whatever. And I used to be like, wow. And I used to love to watch their stuff because I was like, wow, they're really doing this. Like, this is wild to me. That's crazy. People like, for example, I used to watch Gen X Pen, or Our Second Life. It was like a group of, I think, like 5 guys, and they like all moved in a house together, and they would kind of like film different challenges or whatever. And they're all around my age. Or like people like Fun for Louie. Louie's older, but Louie, literally his YouTube channel was him traveling all over the world, him just vlogging it. Like, that was it. And I was fascinated. I was like, wow, that's crazy. Or even Swoozie like blew up on YouTube for just telling stories about his life, like things that happened in his life. That's it. That's literally it. And he did a phenomenal job at it. So I think it's just dope that we have just made it cool and made it popular and made it well known that, hey, there's no secret anymore. You can make money on the internet doing what you love. Or not just money on the internet, but just you can do what you love, period, and make money. So, yeah. And then another cool thing about these 2 generations is that we've made it cool to be entrepreneurs. Whereas like my mom's generation, or like maybe the generation between me and my mom, or even before her, you tell somebody you're an entrepreneur, they like, they assume you ain't got no money. They like, well, where your job at? You know what I mean? You don't got no job, or you broke. You know what I mean? Whereas now, if you tell somebody oh, I'm an entrepreneur, they might be like, oh, so you got money. You got money. You know what I mean? Ooh, you got money. So it's like a whole different dynamic. And then another thing that I love about being non-traditional in this generation is that we've made it popular and practical to live a healthier lifestyle. And mostly we've done that through like the internet, the big boom on the internet, and also through magazines and things like that, because it wasn't, cool maybe like 10, 15 years ago to be healthy, to be a vegan. Vegan? What's that? You know what I mean? Vegetarian. Oh, you're a vegetarian. Oh, you don't eat meat? You know what I mean? That wasn't as popular, and it wasn't cool. It wasn't like celebrated. You would look, you would kind of get the side eye. Like, yeah, okay, you don't eat meat. Especially, especially from where I came from, being around a bunch of black people, we was really giving people the side eye if they was black and they said they were vegetarian. Like, yeah, okay, like, you know what I mean? How you eat at home with your family and you the only vegetarian? Like, your whole family vegetarian? Huh? It was kind of unheard of. And I just think it's so cool now that, of course, you can be vegan or vegetarian and still eat unhealthy, but you have, it's more encouraged, I think, to eat healthier and eat more vegetables and things like that. Whereas, without that, without those trends, a lot of people just, do a lot of fast food and processed foods and things like that. And we all know, or we should all know, that stuff is extremely unhealthy. And that's just the really dope part about it. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things that I've just named that are really cool about what we've changed in our generations. And there's like a basement there's like pits in those things. There's like pros and cons. And there's also pros and cons to being traditional, because some traditions are very helpful and they're there for a reason, and they're the reason why we've survived and why we thrive today. And so there's some things that are very good about traditions, especially those traditions are rooted in very great like points, you know what I mean? And you're never gonna, just be able to get away from all traditions. You just have to look at the root of it, and then also look at how the way it expresses itself. Because, for example, like the tradition of, I'll say, men and women, when, back in like maybe like the 50s, 60s, 40s or whatever, men like paid for everything in the household, paid for all the kids' expenses, the wife, everything. And the wives a lot of times stayed at home with the kids and make sure they were fine and everything like that. Whereas now, a lot of people have gotten out of that tradition, and women are out in the workforce, working now, and which is great, because men aren't the only one that have skills and have gifts. Women have those as well. But I think what's rooted in that tradition that's great is the guy being the provider, because, men can't carry and sustain, life what a woman does. And a woman but it's harder for a woman to be able to sustain her income and still work while she's in a later term of her pregnancy, or right after she's given birth. Her body still needs to heal and rest, and she needs time to, take care of the baby and bond with the baby. And so it is good for a guy to still be able to, her husband or whatever, to still be able to provide and sustain things in the household if something like that occurs. You know what I mean? Especially if that couple wants multiple children. There's a good root for that. And so I think you just have to kind of take a look at things and don't just bash tradition, because some people just, kind of just bash traditional stuff. And I don't really agree with that. I think it's cool to listen to both sides and, make a what's the term? It's an educated guess. That's the term. It's an educated guess. And the cool thing about Quality Cup Life, this is a non-traditional way of looking at life and operating. It's rooted in some very great traditional foundations, but it's expressed in a lot of ways in non-traditional ways. And that's like a very sweet spot to be at, because you can see both sides and be able to make your own decision instead of only seeing one side and going with that without, never asking any questions and never assessing where you are and what you want to do for yourself. And so I love it here. If you love it here, consider subscribing. Comment down below what are some traditions that you are here for or not here for if you're on YouTube. And feel free to also share this with a friend if you found this helpful. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll catch you next week. Bye.